things can always look great on paper. Like it looks like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then you get it in and you start using it, or you got sold in the demo and you're like, this is a piece of trash. And I am so mad. I've had clients where they've implemented whole systems and then have gone back to their system that they were using before because it worked. Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. It is Brandy Mabra here. Today we're going to be talking about tools, like software tools. I'm not really the techiest person, I'll be honest. But in my operations background, in business leadership, all the things, there are a lot of tools that I've had to vet, that I've had to work with, that I've had to implement. And one thing I know to be true, especially in today's time with AI and more automation available to us to help streamline systems and make things easier, make things where we don't have to necessarily hire a person at this point in time. We can have people robots like AI agents and all the things, then today's conversation I think will be really great as we talk about that you can have the best tool. I mean, the best tool, have all the features and still have a wacky system or have a janky system or have a system that still costs money or something that becomes over complex. So it's a little bit of a different spin on today, but I'm super excited to talk about it. So why do systems not stick when it comes to you have this amazing tool? And even inside a private practice CEO, we have clients who are implementing automation. It's one of the things that we're talking about, especially before they hire. If things feel manual, clunky, things feel harder than what they need to be. And then we always go down to what is the best tool. You can inflate your expenses and destroy a profit margin in 0.25 seconds by paying for a tool that you don't necessarily utilize in the right way or you don't know how to use. So let's start off first with this being healthcare. Let's start off with the basics. So your EHR or your EMR, electronic health record, electronic medical record, is like the cornerstone of your practice. And when you don't set yourself up right with that tool baseline, then it can cause so much dysfunction and so much unnecessary time to be wasted from the 10 plus EHRs, EMR systems that I've implemented over my career. And even as I get exposed to more, even with the clients that I work with and helping them to implement some of their EMR systems, things can always look great on paper. Like it looks like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then you get it in and you start using it, or you got sold in the demo and you're like, this is a piece of trash. And I am so mad. I've had clients where they've implemented whole systems and then have gone back to their system that they were using before because it worked. So when you think about the system, and when you're implementing any kind of tool, then you want to make sure, again, we always talk about mission and vision. What is the vision that you have? Like, why are you even implementing a new tool? So again, baseline, your EHR system, EMR system. If you are in a place where you feel like you need a new one or the one that you have isn't currently working, then you need to get very clear on what is working and what's not working. Why do you want to make a change? Also identifying, is there certain areas within your practice, certain workflows, processes, or systems that you are hoping that the new tool will fix? Because again, like if you implement the wrong one, then you're going to be mad, right? And you're going to be sad and you'll probably be crying. With EMR, some systems that I've even implemented, people have quit during implementations. Like this is how serious it is. So I think people underestimate when they go into new tools, and they underestimate the work that happens or the change management cycles that you need to navigate for people, especially if they gotten used to using certain things or if they gotten used to the manual way or now they're not technology savvy. Like there's so many emotions that can go into this, which is why systems can fail. The other thing that I see is people will say like, "Oh, we got this really great tool. I've bought it. I've spent thousands of dollars for it, or hundreds of dollars a month, or $50 a month." It does not matter. They will get it and then they will never use it. It'll just sit. It will sit and just collect dust, and you'll pay the subscription every single month, right? And so when you think about your leadership and the accountability and setting the expectation around using a system or around using a tool, around using all the features within a tool, then you have to set yourself up for success. So there's really 5 areas within a business. And you can see tools when it comes to payroll. You know, we are all familiar with different payroll systems. You can use tools when it comes to marketing. We're all familiar with like email marketing systems. So when we think about CRMs, which are customer relationship management platforms, then there's all of those, so there's so many tools that you can start to get shiny object. And at this point in time with AI, we got Claude, we got ChatGPT, we got like social media tools, we got Revio. I mean, all kinds of stuff that you can just go into the world and you can find a tool. But you can buy the tool, but if you are not consistent with it, or you're not setting the expectation, or you're not from a leadership standpoint saying this is what the protocol is for this tool, or this is what the SOP is for this tool, or this is what the policy procedure is for this tool, you're just wasting money. It will sit there and collect dust, or people will use it inappropriately. So we're talking more about even with ChatGPT and just with AI. And so depending on how your team is utilizing it and what you're doing with it inside your practice, or even if you are inside of your EHR system, EMR system, and using some type of AI tool to help with documentation, there has to be some type of guardrail around it and what is acceptable for tools that can be used inside of your practice. Because if you have a bigger team and they go out and think, "Oh, I'm going to use ChatGPT to help me with my documentation from a provider standpoint or a physician standpoint," and it's not paid, they end up putting maybe patient sensitive information in that tool because there's not a system or there's not a formal policy and procedure, then you could have a HIPAA breach. So when you are leading with some of these conversations, you're setting the tone, or you're working with your leadership team to set the tone for how you want tools to be used inside of your practice. And that's across the board. Communication tools. I know a lot of times people use, like for my company, we use Slack. For other folks, they use Slack, Google Chat, Teams, WhatsApp, just thinking about some of the things that people have thrown my way for what they use for internal communication inside of the EHR systems. There's internal IM systems that you can use to chat even within that system. What is the accountability piece, and how do you want people to use those tools to communicate within your practice? And do they know? Is there something that's more appropriate to be used within like a Slack or within a Google Chat compared to what's being talked about inside of your EMR system or your EHR system? So if you don't have a system, or you're failing to hold your team accountable to how they're using the system or not using the system, then you're setting yourself up for failure and you're setting your team up for failure, right? And so the efficiency that can come when you actually have a good process and system that is matched with the tool that you're using, then that's powerful. That's how you can save hours and minutes and days and months. And when you start to add all this stuff up together, that you can really save yourself money when we're thinking about expenses. So when we think about communication and how you're rolling out a tool, I think people underestimate this process. Like, I bought this tool, we're now going to start using it. Here's this 5-minute training on how to use it, and then we're off to the races. And more times than not, people learn different ways. You could go through that same 5-minute training, and somebody was like, "I still don't know how to use it." Somebody missed the training. Somebody didn't go back and watch the training. Maybe you forgot somebody didn't know how to use it. So whenever you're implementing any kind of tool, then you have to communicate the purpose of that tool, why does it exist, have a rollout of that tool, make sure everybody is trained efficiently on that tool, having some type of checklist for that tool, some type of sign off on that tool, so you know everybody is good to go. Again, a lot of EHR, EMR system implementations, and for every single one, we've had soft launches, we've had beta launches, we've maybe done it with one provider, we've done it with maybe one team member, just to make sure that you're able to work out the kinks. We have communicated when a soft date, like a soft live date is compared to, hey, we're on this system from this date forward. Like there has to be some type of formality to it. And even with simple tools, like having a phased approach. So some of our clients are implementing where like on the front end, scheduling systems, right? And so maybe navigating two systems at one time. What is the phased rollout? We're going to start with this one section. We're going to enter, for example, the demographics of a patient. That's phase one. Phase two is we're now going to start using the scheduling part of this system. That's phase two. Phase three is we're now going to communicate to patients through this system. Having a rollout with intentionality is super important, especially as you're thinking about the different tools that you can use and the systems that need to be set up for that. And when we think about just the system sustainability or tools that will help you today and this time next year and the year after that, or if you're thinking about the next upgrade and getting your money's worth and making sure that it's definitely helping, enhancing the practice and not being a distraction to the practice, when you're actually setting it up with intentionality, being strategic, looking at the person who needs to use it, looking at how it's going to impact the team collectively, how it's going to impact the practice, that's how you're able to set yourself up for success. So the other piece of it is I have a lean background where lean methodology, it is a Japanese methodology. I love it because it allows for you to get to the root of what a problem is. It also allows for you to map out a workflow where you're looking at what is step one. And sometimes this is where people get mad and they skip. But at this point in time, there's tools that you can use to map out like a workflow. So for example, Canva, you can map out a workflow. When we think about developing like a really good, solid workflow for a tool, then you start off with step one. So step one could be the person enters the building. That's step one. And then you go to the person walks up to a desk. That's step two. The person says their name, step three. And so when we think about implementing a tool, you have to get that granular with how you're going to use it. When you map out the workflow, whether you're using Post-its, writing down what the step is and sticking it on a wall, where you're doing decision trees. So if it is where the person walks up to the desk and they ask a question, can I see the provider today? The answer would be yes or no. So what would be the workflow if they say yes? And then what would be the workflow if they say no? This is deeper work when you're really trying to make sure that a workflow makes sense and that a tool is actually going to make sense for your practice. And when it does, great. When you do this work, you can come to the conclusion, absolutely, I'm going to spend $500 for this tool. Or you can come to the conclusion, oh, heck no, I'm not going to spend $500 for this tool because the workflow isn't going to match for what we need based on the tool. So again, when you're mapping out workflows, you can use different tools. Again, talking about tools, there's Canva that you can use to map out a workflow. There's Google Docs and templates inside of Google Drive that you can use to map out workflows. There is project management tools that you can use to map out workflows. There's PowerPoint, the presentation that you can use to map out workflows. And then there are actual workflow tools. Not that I think that you need that if you want it to map out like an actual workflow. So it sounds simple. I'm going to go buy this tool. I'm going to spend $50. I'm going to spend $500. But literally, if you don't implement it right, you could lose thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars. And depending on an organization size, you could use millions of dollars. I've been there, done that, have the t-shirt. So at the end of the day, when you are wanting to implement a system, making sure that you're communicating it clearly, the purpose and why, making sure that you understand how the tool is going to be an enhancement to the practice and not a distraction to the practice, And then making sure that you're holding the team accountable to using it on a regular basis, because folks you'll buy a tool. And if the old tool is still around, people will continue to use the old tool because that's what they're used to compared to using the new tool. The accountability part of implementing a tool in a system is priceless, just priceless. Some ways that you can make sure that people continue to use it is where you audit, right? You're asking questions inside of your team meetings. You don't have to necessarily micromanage your team to go and walk and see, or go and look at, asking, are you using the tool? Are you using the tool? Did you use the tool? Or walk around the office and see if they're using the tool. Have built-in systems and built-in feedback. So you can have it where you can have committees or peer groups around the tool, implementation groups, especially when it comes to implementing like EHR systems, bigger systems, and then getting feedback all the time. How can you refine it? What's working? What's not working? So having dedicated time on your calendar for operations, especially when you have a leadership team, and that's what our clients do. There's a set time for operational meetings where in those meetings, you're talking specifically about, do we need an SOP for this? Is what we're doing working? Is it not working? Is the system broken? Is there a bottleneck? Are we using the tool? Is the tool working? Is the tool not working? Are we using it the right way? Do we need to get additional training on it? Are we wasting money? Are we making money? Like, all of those things can definitely get factored into it. Do you have the right tool inside of your practice? I guess is how we'll end this episode. And for you to get very clear on that, and hopefully this episode helps you to make sure that if you're going to spend money on a tool, especially in today's times, that you're definitely getting everything out of it, and that you're not wasting your money, but you're actually making money, and you're making your life easier, and you're making the life of your team easier as well. Productivity is the purpose, and that's the word for the day. So if you're waiting on a tool to save you, it's not going to save you. It will not be save you. So, you can only save yourself. So when it does come to a tool, you do have to make sure that you have the right workflow, the right accountability system in place, and then making sure that you understand fully what you need to do and don't need to do with that tool before you go out and get another tool because you have shiny object syndrome. So stay away from that. Of course, if you need some additional support, there's Private Practice CEO. You can see the show notes for that. And we go through AI conversations, tool conversations. If you want to learn how to map out a really great workflow, then we can talk about that too. And then as always, there is, if you're new to me, there is the Own Your CEO Status Masterclass that we host. And you can see how you can take your practice from $500,000 to $5 million just through having really great leadership, sound operations processes and systems in order to get you there. So see the show notes for all of that information, and I will see you next time. Bye. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.